Oh, look at that 767. Doesn't that look nice? Gotta hand it to Captain Sim. They do a very good job of external modeling of the aircraft. Anyway, hello YouTube, my name is Flightsimguy and welcome to my Middle East tour. Here I am in Cairo, Egypt. Airport code I think is HECA, and I'm flying to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Just wrapped up the Caribbean tour. I'm going to keep these tours to maybe 5 to 7 hops, no more than that. And for this one, since we're in the Middle East, we're going to be touring through several countries, and they're spread out. So this tour is going to be primarily, quote-unquote, long haulers, such as the 767. And I realize that even though my hops are anywhere between 500 and 800 miles, that does not qualify for a long haul on most people's books. It qualifies in my book because I don't have too much time for this stuff. Now that's a good shot right there. I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of that, post it somewhere. It looks really good. We're in P3D. For these long flights, I don't want to use a simulator that's going to crash on me. And I figured I'd just go ahead and use GSX to provide some ambiance while we get the aircraft loaded and set up. This particular flight is about 800 miles, 33,000 pounds of fuel. In the 767, it's already configured with maximum cargo and maximum passengers. And in a moment, I'm going to go through the startup process. One thing I like about Captain Sim and the other add-on developers, they give you that menu interface where you can access all aspects of the plane in one click. Some of the, most of the best add-ons have that feature. Captain Sim, they have it with all of their planes, just that, you know, the rest of their development efforts, primarily the interface and the flight model, is not as good as how it looks. But unless you get level D 767, this is the only other 767 worth flying. Alright, so let's go ahead and do the startup. I don't have a 767 checklist, so I use my 757 checklist. As you may recall, the 767 and the 757 were developed simultaneously. So it doesn't take much to get from one rating to the other. And interestingly, Boeing discontinued the 757, I think back in the mid-90s, but the 767 is still in development. In fact, the new tankers that's going to replace the KC-10 and the KC-135 is based on the 767 airframe. So the 767 product line is alive and well. Okay, getting those INS aligned. Just going through my flows at this point. And GSX is complaining about some stuff. And we should be wrapping up the overhead in short order. Alright, that's it for the overhead. Let's go ahead and call, get a weather report or ATIS. And then after we do this, we can go ahead and set up the flight management computer, which I will not include you on because you already know how to do that. Speaking of level D sims, when I was at Flightsimguy, the developer for the level D 767, which was considered best in its class at the time, it was considered on par with PMDG, but I guess the person developing walked away from the product, and it's still available. You can get it for FSX and for FS9. It's not. I don't think it's going to work with P3D, however. And the FSX version, someone came out with a cockpit texture package to upgrade the cockpit textures of the level D 767 to make it look more modern. Now, with all these new sim platforms, I guess the developer, is building a 757, a level D 757. It's in beta right now, and I guess it will come out and give Quality Wings some competition in the 767 space. Alright, so here I'm building out the flight management computer, and mind you, when I do these flights, what I set up in the flight management computer is a tiny fraction of what the real pilots do. I only punch in the routes, that's it. Up with the lateral navigation, and with that I can go through the rest of my flows. Set up the altitude, runway heading, rejected takeoff, set your altimeter, set your speed on the auto throttle, and usually what I set for the speed is what my V speeds are for climb out, which I think is V2. I just add 20 knots to that, so I think for this takeoff my climb out is going to be 127, so I just go ahead and set my auto throttle to like 150 or so. And not going to fly with ATC this time, so I'll just go ahead and punch in my cruising altitude, which is 37,000 feet. Now, another thing worth mentioning. This is Egypt, and we're in the middle of summer, so this airport is hot as hell. And there was some news a couple of weeks ago about some CRJs in Arizona that couldn't fly because it was too hot. Wings couldn't generate enough lift in that thin air because it was so hot. That rule doesn't apply to the 757 or the 767. They do have their upper limits for what temperature they can take off in, but as powerful as these engines are, they can take off up to like 50 or 52 degrees, which is awfully hot. And we also got to set transponder. Transponder on this plane, the FSX, the P3D version of the Captain Sim 767, there's a bug. And if you set it to TARA, there is forever traffic that you're going to collide with. So you have to set it at just TA, and obviously I forgot. So shortly after I took off, it kept nagging me about I'm going to crash into something. So I had to set it from TARA just to TA, which is good enough for squawking purposes. There you go. I was looking for the radio menu. Trying to tune those knobs, that's another thing with the Captain Sim products. The interface for tuning the knobs, where you got to put the mouse over, it is just so confusing and very, very annoying. And I want to say Shift 8 is what brings up the radio interface. Alright, so for this particular tour, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 stops. And I'll go ahead and show you what they are in a second. And yes, I finally got my IFR squawk. And I chose not to fly with ATC because ATC doesn't sort of get you there directly. It gives you zigzag vectors. So what normally takes 10 minutes can take up to 20 minutes or even half an hour with the AI ATC. So I'll just go ahead and just do this one direct. Alright. With that, let's take a look at the flight plan. It's not the flight plan, but my tour. Let's go ahead and take a look at the various hops that's going to be my tour. Now, keep in mind, these this is not exactly sequential, but there's Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Afghanistan, and I wrap it up in Tunisia. It's obviously not chronological what I just said to what's on the map, but those are the stops. Now, one of the reasons why and I think I said this before, one of the reasons why I do these tours is because as simmers, we're comfortable with, and we're done loading, getting ready for engine start pushback. We're very comfortable with where we fly in our own area. So, simmers in the United States fly in the United States, simmers in Britain fly in Britain. And given that flight simulation is such a global hobby, I mean, there's people from all over the world, gets into this thing. I figure, you know what, I'm going to fly in different parts of the world, see what I can learn. And we did that before. I did a trip around the world at FS 2004, me and a friend of mine, we flew multiplayer sessions. And it's amazing how the different parts of the world you went to had different terrain, different weather. Now that I think about it, the weather back then wasn't active because the weather servers were sure, I'm 100% sure they were offline by then. This was 2009, and we were using Central Flight, which came out in 2004. But the experience was a lot more varied, a lot broader. Here, I've been doing tours within the United States, Caribbean, South America. It's not as diverse as I'd have expected. On the other hand, I'm a much better simmer now than I was back then. And back then, I was using just one aircraft, which was the Learjet, the stock Learjet. And that's not exactly the easiest plane to fly, so I'm pretty sure that had something to do with it. Alright, we're going through our engine startup, getting ready to do engine startup. With these planes, all you need to do is make sure you have your APU on, APU bleed is on, and you have to turn off your air conditioner, your packs, so that you can channel the high pressure bleed air from the packs to the engines, and you have to turn on your fuel pumps. Nothing is going to happen unless you have your fuel pumps turned on. Got to make sure your igniters are on, and then hit start. Now in these planes, or in this plane, start is ground, and I don't know how the hell Boeing came up with that, but that's how you start the plane. There goes the fuel pumps. And here you're going to make sure your bleed air is on, turn off your air conditioners, and then you can just go ahead and start her up. Wow. You know, it's funny. I fly my missions on one computer in my man cave, and I edit them in another one. This computer is a very old computer. It's an HP. It was top of the line when I bought it almost 10 years ago. Well, it's been through several upgrades with hard drives and memory, and I upgraded the graphics card. It has an AMD RX 470. Well, it heats up, and then when it overheats, the computer starts acting flaky, then it crashes. That said, the software, AMD software, has an option where you can override the factory settings and manipulate the speed of the GPU and the fan speed. So I had to turn it up from the automatic, which was about 700 RPM. I had to bump it up to about 1000 RPM to keep the GPU cool so this thing doesn't crash on me. And so far it's working. Keeping my fingers crossed. Alright, we got a good start on engine 2. Now we're doing engine 1. We got light off on engine 1. Once engine 1 is stabilized, we can go through the rest of the startup, get rid of all of those amber lights on the annunciation panel or the warning screen. So here what you got to do is you got to turn on all your hydraulic pumps, your electrical and the hydraulic pumps. Turn off your APU. That's very important. Otherwise, you're gonna run out of gas or run out of oh, big mistake right here. You're gonna run out of spare fuel or your reserves if you don't turn on the APU. Turn off the APU. And those little buttons right there, they have pre-recorded messages, so you just gotta know when to play which one.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board this Boeing 77. May remind you
And then you turn on your engine bleed air, turn off the APU bleed, and turn on your PAX air conditioning. Also turn on the gasper. Gasper, gasper. That's the thing that pumps air to those little knobs or tubes that blows air on you in the overhead. Alright, so we have a good startup. Gonna get a pushback. And this is going to be a very short taxi. Our departure runway is right behind us. We're going to be taking off on runway 5. Add 10 to that. Makes it heading 50. 050. And our course is going to take us to the south and to the east. We'll be flying over that body of water that separates Egypt from Saudi Arabia. And we'll just fly straight into Riyadh. What I'm expecting in this flight, we're in the Middle East, so I'm not looking forward. I'm not going to see a lot of trees. I expect to see a lot of nothing, a lot of sand, and that's about it. All right, we're gonna set our flaps, set rejected takeoff, set toga, or toga on your thrust rating. Here I'm calling for taxi.
Contact tower on 118.1 when ready. Taxi, hold short, runway 5 left, using taxiway Alpha, Boeing 64 Alpha.
Alright, so let's talk about Saudi Arabia for a bit. Saudi Arabia. I've actually been there. It doesn't really count, but I've been there. All it was I stopped through in Saudi Arabia, spent one night before I caught my next flight on to Kuwait. This was back when we used to have PSAB, Prince Sultan Air Base, supporting the no-fly zones over Iraq after the Gulf War, and I had to go around this guy here. I don't trust AI aircraft; they'll taxi right through you. So yeah, I've been to Saudi Arabia once, and let me tell you, man, those people, they have more money than they know what to do with. So monarchy, one big family, runs everything, and they have more oil than they know what to do with. And you don't want to be a criminal in those places. They don't fool around. They'll cane you, cut your head off, cut your hands off. They believe in discipline old school. You don't hear about it a lot, but it happens, trust me. Alright, so we're at the foot of the runway, doing one last go through the checklist. Turn off the taxi lights, turn on the landing lights. Start squawking, turn on your weather radar. Check your trim. Check your takeoff settings. By the way, I don't know how to derate the engines on these things. I know there's a way, something to do with engine pressure ratio. I have absolutely no idea how it's done. Man, I didn't bother to look it up. All I know is after I take off, I just come off the gas a little bit so the plane doesn't run away with me. My RTO isn't set. I said it before. I'm not exactly sure why it popped back up. Maybe I said it too early. Got to make sure your map is in order. Know where you're going to go. Always stay ahead of the aircraft. In the back of my mind, I'm rehearsing what it is I'm going to do after I'm in the air. And in this case, all I need to do is hold heading, climb, and slowly bring up the flaps. Then turn on the autopilot, select altitude, select heading, flight level change, and at the same time keep an eye on your forward speed, because there's a speed limit of 250 below 10,000 feet. Alright, I think I've gotten clearance to go. I'm just gonna slowly taxi from the outside. My gaming buddy Belgio, I don't know how the hell he does it, but he's been simming for so long that a lot of his landings he do from the outside, and he'll just guide the plane and then land it quote unquote third person. I can really taxi third person, let's just do a landing, but it does look a lot better. Alright, got a clearance. Let's go ahead and slowly wheel out, get lined up, and get going. Who the hell is bothering me? Okay, let's see here now. New from Just Planes, piloting the Turkish A330 out of Istanbul. Oh, there's a channel I subscribe to. What a coincidence. It's flying out of the Middle East. Okay, we're all lined up here. Let's get ready to do the takeoff roll. We'll pick it back up in cruise climb.
Cairo Tower, orbit 7774, is 13 miles southwest inbound ILS, runway 5 left approach. Orbit 7774, Cairo Tower, fly straight in, runway 5 left, altimeter 2985. Flight
Alright, I thought that was a pretty good takeoff. I should mention that when I started this flight, I just went ahead and set system time. So the clock, and I don't know, if I did something wrong here, but it was the afternoon, late afternoon, going into the evening when I took off, and I set it to take the right system time, so it should have been 6:30 Eastern. Anyhow, flying out of Egypt, so I'm not sure what the hell time that is, but my point is, it was getting darker as I approached Saudi Arabia, and it was getting darker while I was recording this. So I'm thinking, okay, there's something wrong with the time zone setting here. So we're climbing out, and once I get to cruise altitude, I'm going to turn on warp, which is simulation rate increase. And the Captain Sim products, they don't like warp. It'll take warp 8, but anything over that, it starts flaking out. Anyway, so when I flew into Saudi Arabia first, and this was back in 95, not 95, when was this? 97. It was all fuzzy, I only remember bits and pieces. I do remember coming off the plane, the Saudi folks, the second you get off the plane, they put you in a line and they go through everything you have. And I'm like, what are you guys looking for? And I remember somebody said, alcohol and pornography. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I guess, whatever. Didn't occur to me to bring any. They didn't find any, not on me, but I thought that was interesting. And then the following day, we took off and we went to Kuwait. At the time, PSAB was just one big tent city is all it was, just one big tent city. And shortly after Bush number 2 started the second Iraq war, they shut down PSAB and we pulled out. So, I'm not exactly sure if we have a military presence in Saudi Arabia anymore, but... Alright, so... up ahead is that body of water separating Saudi Arabia from Egypt. And here, what I like to do is toggle over to the virtual cabin view of the aircraft. And I like to make a camera by the window view over the wings. So all I do is use the I move keys in FSX, which is shift enter to go up, shift backspace to go down, control enter to go backwards, control backspace to go forwards, and then control shift enter to go left, or is it right? And control shift backspace to go left, or is it right? I don't know. But I can go ahead and move my point of view wherever I want it, and I like to put it right over the wing so I can get those wing shots. When you're landing. And the 767 has an enormous wing. I mean, this thing is just ginormous. Keep going back. Is this one here? Yep, that must be it. Alright, I think at this point I've engaged warp. Here we go. Yeah, I tried 16 first and it acted very flaky, so I went down to 8. And it moves it along at a good clip. That way you can get through your flights a lot faster. Usually when I'm in cruise, the first thing I do is start planning my approach, because as you may recall, my greatest weakness in my simming is doing the approach. So what I've been doing is, in my tour planning, when I do the flight plan in SimBrief, I also Google the approach plates for all the destination airports that I'm going to. And at this point of the flight is when I pull up the approach plate and decide, okay, what runway am I going to come in on? Obviously, you need a METAR report from the airport that you're landing at, and I didn't get one. So I just had to, be prepared. And this is, I'm not sure what those polygon things look like, but what that's all about. But I suppose this is an accurate representation of the Middle East. As you can see, it's getting darker. Textures are reflecting it. So I had to look forward to a night landing. Now there are a bunch of options that you can use when you're planning your approach. As I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of options for planning your approach. I went ahead and Googled the approach plates, OERK, and I guess they're used by the virtual airlines. And there's a whole bunch of documentation that comes with the approach plate PDF. A lot of it relates to SIDS and stars, taxiway diagram, and the airport layout. You don't really need all of that. What I need with regards to planning my approach are the approach plates, obviously. In this case, there are two parallel runways, 15 left and 15 right, 33 left, 33 right. So, gotta look at which ones have an ILS. Know the ILS frequency. Also, you need to know all the freaks going in for your communications, ATIS, approach control, and tower. Not if you're flying without ATC, obviously. Approach or airport elevation, very important. This one is 2,000 feet up. And what I'm interested in most is ILS frequency and the waypoints leading into the ILS. That way, if I decide to land on this runway, I just punch in these waypoints in the flight management computer, and it can take me all the way down just before I shut off the autopilot. This is 15 left, that has an ILS. This is 15 right, this one has an ILS also. And be sure to look at the diagram at the bottom of the approach plate. It tells you how to fly it with regards to what altitude you need to be at the waypoints leading to the runway. So both 15s have ILS, 33 left, that also has an ILS, and 33 right, that also has an ILS. Also, if you look, there's a VOR station right here. So if you don't want to use an ILS for whatever reason, you can use a VOR to guide you in. And I want to say there's an NDB station around here somewhere. Anyway, point is, in this case, there are many options to come on in. The trick is to find out from ATC or from the tower what the runways are, because if you don't get that information, you might crash into a plane landing on the wrong runway. In this case, I couldn't get a hold of ATC anytime soon. So what I had to do was use the weather feature in Active Sky Next to call or get a weather report, and it gets the weather report at the nearest airport. So I was able to get one for Riyadh, and the weather said winds worth from 145 at 4, which tells me that runway 15 would be in use. Alright, so I'm still at warp. I'm at flight level 320, and I cut out a whole bunch, so now I'm at 9,000 feet. But remember, surface elevation of the airport is 2,000 feet, so I'm actually at 7,000 feet.
Sky clear, temperature 35, dew point -1,
and I'm looking at my display to get an idea as to how far out I am.
Oscar Echo Romeo
I don't
Kilo
trust
Airport
the
information Kilo 2
the progress
0
display on the
Zulu
CDU.
web.
Sometimes it'll give you bad information. Now remember, those plates also had other nav-aid information, such as non-directional beacons. A lot of airports, and I found this out during my tours, a lot of airports have non-directional beacons to guide you in right at the foot of the runway. And a lot of these airports also have VOR stations. So you can also tune in to the VOR station to get an idea as to your bearing from the airport and how far away you are. And if for some reason you screw up your flight management computer, you can use those other nav aids to help you land. In fact, after I'm done with this tour, actually no, I'm not going to wait until I'm done. Shortly after I start this tour, I'm going to do my old school tour. And in my old school tour, I'm flying all old aircraft. They don't have flight management computers. I'm going to be flying VOR station to VOR station and see how that works out. Alright, what's our status here? We're still at 9,000 feet. What's our speed? 190-ish. I tried to find out, tried to tune into the tower, but there was no airport nearby. This part of the world in the simulator is very desolate.
Clear temperature 3.5, dew point -1, altimeter 2.965. Advise on initial contact that you have information. Lima, Oscar, Echo, Romeo, Kilo, airport information. Lima 2200, Zulu, weather, wind 147 at 4.
Alright, so for this one, I got a weather report for Riyadh. Winds were at 145 at 4. So that tells me runway 15 was in use. So I went ahead and used those waypoints. There they are right there. Or I was punching them in. Those are the waypoints that I used. Once I punched them in, updated the flight management computer. And as you can see on the display, it's going to take me from heading of approximately 090 to a heading of approximately 125 to 130, and then I can just make a slight correction and come in at runway 15, I think it was 15 right. But that first waypoint leading me in, I need to be at 4,000 feet, and according to this I was too high. But remember, surface elevation is 2,000 feet, so I'm actually at 3,000 feet, which is as low as I want to go. So I remembered that, and then I decided, oh, I need to level off right here.
2,500.
See, I brought the altitude up, 4,900. And my speed is down to, what is that? 200-ish. 220, 210, 200. Should be giving it one notch of flaps shortly. Still can't find any airports. I just have to go and trust faith that there's an airport around here. Let me tell you, man, these Captain Sim products, they look very good, but they fly kind of crappy. Only a few things that they need to fix. The auto throttle has a hard time keeping still. Fix that. Engine sounds. The engine sounds crappy. If they can give us some better engine sounds, that'd be great. And I think that and how the airplane flies with regards to maintaining altitudes. Sometimes it's wobbles back and forth. Just needs polishing, which is funny because I'm a Johnny-come-lately kind of guy. What that means is I only adopt something after it's been out for several years and nobody else is using it anymore. And by the time I got this product, it's been patched like 8 times. Like they had a whole bunch of upgrades and releases, to bring it up to speed. And so it's, probably end of its support life. Has eight updates, and it's like shit. So I can only imagine what it was like when it first came out. But it's best 767 I have for now. So, all right, I just made a turn. Now I'm going into the last few waypoints to the runway. So at this point, I'm looking out the window to see if I can see anything. And I already have one bringing to the second notch of flaps, or third, I should say, flaps 15. Taking the speed down to, what is that? Can't even see what speed that is. Between 170 and 180. Maybe if I make the screen bigger. Preview full. Best. Okay, you better not lock up on me. Alright. Let's check the status of my CPU here. Or my GPU. Whoa! GPU temperature 62 degrees. I may need to bump that fan up some more. Let me go ahead and see this. By the way, I'm doing the voiceover on the same computer that I'm going to be rendering it on. Okay, so I'm lined up with the runway. I'm a little bit, according to the ILS, actually I'm right on the glide slope. And I turn on the approach hold, but it never did capture. I'm not sure what the problem was. And I turn on the approach hold. I guess I didn't. Alright, so I turned off the autopilot. Figured I'd take it in manually. And you can't see this. But what happened is, the auto throttle is still on. And the auto throttle in the Captain Sim products, I don't know what it does, but for some reason one engine will rev much higher than the other, or one engine will idle while the other one is still revving. You can't see the throttles, but if you look at the engine controls, or the engine instruments, you can see where there's a disparity in the thrust between the left and the right engine, and that's what's throwing me off center. It wasn't until I turned off the auto throttle that everything straightened out. See? Look at that right there. Big discrepancy between 1 and 2. Coming down at 2,000 feet per minute, which is kind of fast. And I figured, you know what? Let's just go ahead and bring this one in manually. So let's go ahead and check out.
500.
Alright, wasn't such a bad landing. Came in high a little bit, but it's a long runway. In the Middle East, a lot of these runways are well over 10,000 feet because it's so hot. They need that extra distance to get into the air. Forgot to arm my auto brakes, but you know, came in down the center line. Got plenty of space ahead of me, and I'm gonna go ahead and take this taxiway off to the left and find somewhere to park. I'd like to be able to take some better screenshots or camera angles. Seriously, looking at chase plane. I already have Easy Dock on my boxed, but it's way too unstable. And I've heard nothing but good news about chase plane. I mean, everybody uses, you know, all hyped up about chase plane, so I need to go ahead and get it. Anyway, I couldn't see where to park, so I pulled up next to this building. And this is obviously not the gates, this is parking. So I figured I'll just go ahead and pull up here and just call it a day. Next flight is going to be from Saudi Arabia to Baghdad. I don't know how many miles that is. It's about maybe 600 to 800 miles. Shouldn't be that bad. And with that, we can go ahead and start the shutdown. I should have turned on the APU shortly after I landed, but I didn't. Not exactly sure what would happen if you tried to do a shutdown without the APU. In theory, everything should just run off the batteries. But, whatever. And I'm pretty sure there's an order to this. But, you know me. I'm just gonna start shutting stuff down. This panel looks really, really good at night. Oh, my fiance just pulled up. And the first thing she always does when she gets home is to bother me. So I'm gonna wrap this up before she gets in here. Shit, I'm just now turning off the engines? Alright, let's go ahead and wrap this up. It was a relatively decent flight, considering I haven't been in the 767 in a long time. I hope you enjoyed this flight as much as I did. My name is Flightsimguy. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.